Good afternoon, Amy and Marie. We're so glad to have you today. What's exciting is hearing about the great things going on in Vancouver and also a lot of the great things that are happening throughout our state. And we've got two case studies that we want to talk about today. The first one is going to be from Amy McGuffin from Kittitas County Chamber. And Amy's the Chief Executive Officer of the Kittitas County Chamber. They have about 500 plus members. And they're also the Economic Development Association, and they also have a function for tourism. They coordinate economic development initiatives from one end of the county to the other. So she has a lot of ground to cover and does a phenomenal job. And I'll also introduce Marie too while I'm here. Marie is the Executive Director at the Pullman Chamber of Commerce. Let me get her information here. And Marie's been with the Pullman Chamber of Commerce since April 2007 and served as Executive Director for the past 13 years. She's lived in the small community of Palouse for 35 years. She's very involved in the community in a wide variety of organizations, including the Pullman Civic Trust, Pullman Lions Club, and she's a past chair of the Washington Chamber of Commerce Executives. So Amy's going to talk to us about a campaign workshop that she's been working on this past year. And then afterwards, we're going to have Marie talk to us about a partnership that she worked with Washington State University to help build capacity for her advocacy efforts by bringing on an intern from Washington State University to help her develop and coordinate her advocacy program. So we're going to start with Amy. Amy, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me well? Good. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, there's a little bit of background, as always, at the Chamber of Commerce. We're trying to elevate ourselves in places that we feel that we need to do a better job at. And one of the things that we felt here at Kittitas County was, although we were very involved in advocacy, we had legislative priorities, we did town halls, we did legislative day, but what we didn't do was, what is the up and coming civic leaders that we have, and how can we empower them to go into a public office or boards or commissions? And so with the help of Renee Sinclair from TVW, she presented at our government affairs and she suggested that we do a campaign workshop. So that was in February of 2023, and we quickly put something together and we just completed our workshop dates. As you can see, we started March 30th. So within a very quick timeline, we added this campaign workshop for our chamber. We were ecstatic. Even though we had 15 spots available, we only had 7, but we felt like that was a very good start for us, that we have never played the field of engaging those that might be interested in civic leadership. So the campaign workshops were every week from 5:30 to 7:30, and really it was a very non-formal open table discussion. We felt like that was a little bit more personable, especially trying to get provoking topics and kind of feeling where everyone was to stay non-partisan. We just wanted to see why they were interested and why they wanted to be involved in our community. And so we really left it very informal. But what we did do is we had what we called educators, and the educators provided, can you still see that? I switched my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So those educators focused on 4 topics since it was a 4-week process. And we chose educators that were engaged either by being an elected official, our county assessor came in, our county treasurer came in, and then also our volunteers in the voting office also participated. So we really had educators that could give good advice to those that might be interested. But we also leaned on past legislators to join us. We had Ann Anderson, who was a state representative for many years. We also had in our finances and reporting, we had Todd Myers, which is a well-known fundraiser and compliance consultant. So we did have some very well-rounded educators that came into the 4 process weeks. So we started with campaign planning. Pretty much that was campaign 101. We just explained really the high level of what it takes to be an elected official or to be on boards or commissions. And then the second week we went into finances and reporting. That was a very lengthy conversation, especially as we were doing that class. There was some rules changing as we were talking about that. So it was very nice to have the back and forth conversation. Like anything nowadays, message development and delivery was a very good attended class because we talked a lot about the importance of doorbelling, the importance of use of social media, if any, and how to be prepared for forums or for debates or anything that might position the elected official or the incumbent coming in. And then we talked about campaigning, really talking about thank you notes, dealing with the negative campaigning that might come around them. So this 4 weeks was really, really packed full. And the feedback that we got was, I don't think I'm going to do it this year, but this was great information. I think a lot of the attendees that came in were very, very fresh. They did not know what to expect. They didn't know where to go, what to do. And so I'm happy to report all 7 of them have applied for commissions. So we do feel like we're 100% successful with this class because they need to start somewhere. And so we're just really excited that they took what they learned and realized that maybe it's not an elected official, but maybe it's let's get more involved in our community. So that's kind of where we went with this workshop. It worked for us. We're a very rural county, and so choosing the right topics were important for us. We have learned since we finished this workshop that we probably will extend it out a couple more weeks and do a little bit more hour classes instead of 2 hours. We felt like the 2 hours was a little bit long on some of the class topics. But we are going to do it again. It will become annual for us, and we have decided to start a little earlier. We felt like, I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick. We did feel that the information we gave them was really tight to some deadlines that they really couldn't focus on if this was a right decision for them. So we're going to start a little earlier so that they can process it a little bit better and have the ability to ask questions, especially from the educators that we introduced them to. We felt like there was no time for them to really digest what they had learned and to move forward appropriately. So that, I really talked fast, but that is in a nutshell what the workshops were about. So I will open this for Q&A real quick so that I can tell you more if I missed something.
Amy, I got a question. How long did it take you from when you decided to start it to put your curriculum together and to I guess, put it all together? How long was that process and how did that come about?
We literally got it done in a 2-week time. The reason it was so quick for me particularly is I went to WACE Academy, and that was one of their topics of discussion was campaign workshops. So I was able to use my membership and went to the resource library, and they already had some kind of pinpointed on topics. And so then in my government affairs, I am blessed with 2 incredible people. I have the government affairs employee of Central Washington Home Builders Association. So she was on my government affairs. And then I have a political marketing company owner that is also on my government affairs, who is also an elected official in one of the communities. So I was able to share the resources that I received. They gave me pointers of what would work, what wouldn't work. And then I have a great communication staff member that helped me put together the brochure, and we got the QR code and we were able to release it quite quickly.
Hey, it's Lori from the Tri-Cities. I have 2 questions. Was there a fee to participate? Were you able to monetize this? And then secondly, you mentioned you had 15 spots and you got 7 applicants, but if you would have had more than 15, was there a process to narrow it down? How would you have selected 15 people if you would have had 20 applicants?
So we chose to do first come, first serve. We were ambitious and hoping to fill all 15 and then some. So we did first come, first serve. And then we did not monetize. We felt like this was our inaugural opportunity. So we did it for free. And the nice thing is I have a boardroom that can fit 23 people. So we focused on the 15 spots because there would be no cost to doing it at the chamber. And so we did not put a fee to it. Most of our items that we do here in a rural county, we try to keep it as inexpensive as possible because we'd rather have engagement over ticketed. So.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much, Amy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So next up is Marie. Marie's going to talk to us a little bit about the partnership that she has with Washington State University to help build capacity for her advocacy programs. So, Marie, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. And Amy gave me so much time I can tell jokes and stuff as well, I guess. Can you hear me okay? By the looks on your face, I think you can. It's nice to see some of your faces. I wish I could be there in person. I just hosted our monthly luncheon where we had a presentation, our city State of the City address by our longest serving mayor of Pullman, 20 years, five unopposed elections along the way. He is retiring at the end of the year. So this was his last State of the City address, and it was definitely bittersweet. So I'm coming a little unprepared, but also a little bit emotional. He helped get me into this position, and he's been a very great friend. Also the voice of the Cougs, if you're not familiar with Glenn Johnson. Thank you, Amy. That was really interesting. And I can't wait to hear a little bit more about what you're doing, because it sort of seems like maybe that might be a next step for us. Like many chambers, our mission is to promote, advocate, and support our businesses of Pullman. And in our case, we also serve as the city's visitor center and promote tourism through marketing and community events, such as the National Lentil Festival. We're the largest city in our county, but very, very rural as well. So the county sort of looks to Pullman and the Pullman Chamber specifically as their leader in advocacy. And yet for a number of years, our Government Affairs Committee has just been made up of a pretty small group of very engaged members. And we do discuss important issues, but we haven't really done anything with that. We do work with, I heard the question earlier, I think, about an agenda. We do work on an agenda every year, a legislative agenda that really information from our businesses, but we try to line up with our city and our other leaders in the city and the county. We don't want to ever go crossways with our legislators. So we always want to make sure that we're in alignment with them as well. We try to really focus on those business problems, if you will. Like the previous presenter before Amy, I want to add that our community of Pullman is very, very lucky with our 9th District legislators, and we have very close connections with all 3, our senator and our 2 representatives. In the 9th District. They are very hands-on. I have them all on speed dial on my phone, and they drop in quite often to our government affairs meetings on a regular basis. And during the session, we have bi-weekly phone calls all the way through the session, just getting updates from them and letting them know how things are going here. And I realize we are very lucky in that way. And so I know we really appreciate that. But without dedicated staff for government affairs, and frankly, politics are not my favorite game to play, and not in my wheelhouse. It's really been obvious the last couple of years that policy and bills are going through that have affected our businesses sometimes very negatively, and we haven't really been able to make our businesses aware of that. And so we decided, it was really imperative that as the chamber, we needed to be proactive rather than reactive. So after a brief conversation with some folks from WSU and specifically the VP of Government Affairs, we decided to reach out to the College of Arts and Sciences here at Washington State University about a possible internship. Now, I recognize that not everybody has Washington State University in their backyard, although they are across the state and have satellite campuses all across the state. And I might just point out here that this position that we created could very easily be a remote position. So be thinking about that. We worked with a policy coordinator within the Office of the State Relations, as well as the Dean of Undergraduate Studies in the College of Arts and Sciences. And we just thought about what the position might look like, helping us, really be proactive. This included building a job description and figuring out what the estimated hours might be to track bills, to research those bills and the needs of our community and how they would interact with each other. And then really the biggest part of this was then to communicate through a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter that reached our members and let them know, again, proactively rather than reactively, what they could do to have their voice be heard. The general expectation for credits, if you are hiring somebody for a credited class, is 3 hours per week per credit. So for this long session, we looked at a 4-credit session. So we estimated the time involved in that bill tracking and creating a template for communications, as well as the interns meeting attendance. I know that Colin attended a lot of the AWB meetings, were really, really helpful for him, as well as our own government affairs meetings. We worked with Professor Richard Elger, who oversees the internship program in the School of Political Science. And then he opened a call to political science majors, the upper class of those majors. And then he vetted for us the first round and sent me his top 5 students, which was super helpful. He had more hands-on with them than I did. So it was nice to have him sort of vet that first round. However, I got to tell you, when he gave me the 5 applicants, I looked at them and they were just all tremendous and way smarter than me, and way more versed for sure. And so really it became sort of a personality test, if you will. I Zoom interviewed all 5 of them, and it was right about their Christmas break in December. We got a little behind the 8 ball getting this started. And so I started every conversation with, your resume looks amazing. And so this is really going to be about, how do we communicate with each other? One young gentleman rose to the top, and he was amazing. And I did not go wrong in my first instinct. But some of the summary of duties and the way that the job description was written, I'll just read it to you. The Chamber is seeking an intern for the spring of 2023 to assist in monitoring the Washington State Legislature and keeping the Chamber apprised to developments that may affect the interests of the Pullman community. The intern will also support the Chamber in both internal and external communications. That includes participation in meetings with local business and legislative leaders. Further responsibilities include other duties and special projects as assigned, which we didn't have. The workflow of the internship will be heavy, obviously, in January and February, and coinciding with the busiest part of the legislative session, then taper off in March and April. Start date for the position was December 1, with the end date as at the conclusion of this long session of 105 days. We did look at compensation, and we chose to compensate with a $500 stipend every month. Thought that that would be sort of that carrot, as well as the 4 credits. I got to tell you that my intern told me at the end that that most students would have done this for just the credits, that the stipend was just sort of icing on the cake, and that the payback for the credits, and in fact, he was such an incredible student. We offered 4 credits and he really only needed 3. So he decided not to do the extra paperwork for the 4th credit, but he was fantastic. So the anticipated start date really should be in December if you're going to have somebody in line for a January session start. That gave him an opportunity to sort of start looking at the tracking system, and in this case, building the tracking system that he was going to be using. I highly recommend finding someone motivated and a self-starter, especially this first year. Now, he left me with some great notes to pull somebody in again this next year and have a place to start, but he really built everything. So starting him in December, you know, sort of looking at the Washington legislative bill tracker and looking at some of the agendas of our past couple of years legislative agendas. It really kind of gave him an idea of what we were looking for and what our needs were for our community. We also did a little survey to get some feedback from our community, and he was able to use that to help him track. We already had our legislative agenda in place, but he started right away just honing in and finding bills that were sort of left over from last year that he could then start building on and closely follow. We shared a Google Doc, which was really, really helpful. That way, instead of emails, getting lost in the zillion emails that we get every day, we just had a Google Doc where I could add notes, he could add notes, we could share information and keep each other apprised of what's going on. And that was super helpful. As the season got underway, Colin and I worked really closely together on what those bills were looking like and how they were tracking. But then equally, we wanted to make sure our businesses knew what we were following. So we built a template for a newsletter using our constant contact. That template didn't change. It looked the same every time, and the subject line was always advocacy and legislation. And so our members knew that this was coming specifically from our government affairs. And if there was a call to action, we would put call to action in the subject line. And that was really helpful. We got a lot of great feedback from members saying, this one stood out and I needed to open it. And our open rate, I forgot to look, but it was in the 35%, which, as you know, is pretty high. So that was really helpful to do that. As the session wound down and Colin and I were wrapping up before he graduated this past weekend with 2 degrees. He's a bit of an overachiever. He's from Colorado and came to WSU on a 4-year full ride scholarship. I don't know how I picked the right one, but the young man is going to go far in life. It was really a pleasure to work with him, but he thanked me for the opportunity for this hands-on learning, and that he wouldn't want me to repeat this maybe up on campus, but to you all, I can tell you that he thought that this opportunity for him was better than any class he had taken on campus. Just the opportunity to learn hands-on and to really dive into, how the process was all working in Washington is a little different than Colorado. So he was able to sort of see those differences. But then to be here at our government affairs meetings and meet firsthand the mayor and speak with other leaders in the community. And he just really felt empowered by that. And surprisingly, he was going to go into law, and he's now changed his mind, and he actually has a job that he's going back to Denver in public policy, and is super excited about just what he's learned through this internship. And I'm more than proud of him. He sort of felt like my son for the last 6 months. My thoughts as I think back about this project and how this has gone, I really think that this has been advantageous for our members and our government affairs committee specifically. It really helped inform our members and keep them in front of issues. And I hope to see that grow. We will be looking for an intern again this next year, but I really think having that engagement closer tracked with our members will increase their call to action when needed. And I think that's really imperative as we see more and more traction with bad bills, perhaps. We watched our government affairs committee grow by 45% on a regular basis. Now, we have started sometimes with our committee, pretty active at the beginning, but by March, we might have a few people there, but they stayed the whole time. In fact, the last meeting was Colin's last meeting before graduation, and we had donuts, and I think there were 25 people there, and it was really, really fun to see that engagement. Further, Professor Elgar, who worked with me, was nominated and awarded the Community Outreach Service Award from WSU for helping collaborate with us and supported us in finding this first government affairs student intern. So I can't say enough about the program and how we built it out. And really, it was sort of a leap of faith a little bit, but it's been really, really advantageous. Thinking about it from, other communities maybe not having a university access, really, I think there are probably some high school students that have an eye and an ear for policy and government affairs. And with a little bit of, support, I think they could be super helpful for most chambers. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that someone might have.
Great. Do you have any questions? Jake.
Hey, Marie, Jake Mason.
Hi, Jake Mason. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs. Hey, I was in and out, so I'm sorry if you touched on this, but you already had a really good relationship. I worked with you when I was a student at Wazoo, and so you've always had a good relationship with the college and with the students there. Is that something that you felt helped you move into this space where you could bring a kid on, or what did that look like for you?
That's a great question, Jake. Yeah, you're right. I just feel so fortunate to be here in Pullman. I think the relationship with WSU and student leadership and with ASWSU, has just been really phenomenal. Now, this was a little bit of a step out of my comfort zone. We've had interns before, but usually around hospitality and event planning. So I knew the route. This was a little bit different. And I also felt like I wasn't necessarily qualified to be the one that they would report to. So that was a little scary, but I had a lot of really great support from Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. That's where we have our government affairs meetings, and Brian Ricker, their government affairs lead. And so, it was just really easy, and the student made it painless. But we are very lucky to have WSU here, and they're, they want to be, as a land grant university, they want to be a part of the community and really part of communities all across the state.
Marie, this is Drew. What would you say the biggest success out of the partnership was with Colin? When you look at it, what's the biggest takeaway that you have from having this program in place? this year?
I think if I heard you correctly, Drew, you were asking about the biggest takeaway for me, for the chamber. I really think that communication piece. I think as much as I would have liked to have, as much as I thought I was communicating with our members, I think the communication through our regular e-news was just being lost. You know, it was being lost. Maybe I should. I want to just, can I share my screen for just 1 second? If you said no, too late. I have it open here. Hopefully you can see that. This is just in constant contact, but this is what the newsletter looked like. And it was the same template every week. And Colin broke it down into these themes that were important to us: education and workforce, of course, energy and environment, healthcare, housing and land use, workplace law, and human resources. And then, you know, he kept track of the bills and sort of, you know, dates, if they were passed or if they had been signed, or if they were, you know, thrown out or whatever. And he just kind of changed this every week to keep us abreast. And I think the chamber members were thrilled to have this, you know, sort of honed down for them, especially I'll tell you, we all know with the housing and bills this year and rental and management, that kind of stuff, that is huge here in Pullman. As you know, we have 22,000 students, and we have a lot of rental properties, and so some of those bills that were coming through were pretty egregious. So we had several members who were really following that, and especially through our own e-news here, or our newsletter. And there's a picture of me and Colin. I think that was kind of the biggest takeaway, is just that opportunity to share and communicate with our businesses and hear from them that they got a lot out of it. I think when you're looking at members who are struggling financially, wondering, you know, what does the chamber do for me? This is one of those things where we've been maybe advocating for them, and not in a way that they recognized that we were. So this was something we could show them that we were doing.
Hi, Marie, it's Lori.
Hi, Lori.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I think this is just a wonderful idea. And I just want to congratulate you on being so innovative about this. You know, I think that I sat there, you know, I have a government affairs person, but I went through a transition this year. And it's really hard, I mean, even for a large organization, larger like my chamber, or a small organization, it is really hard. You know, I empathize with the situation you're in. You know, you're a generalist, you have to do all these things, and then during the session you have to put all this focus into everything that's going on in the session, plus keep all these other plates spinning. So to bring somebody in to do that is really innovative. But it got me thinking about, if there's interns to help with government affairs, there could be interns to help with other things. Like, you know, I have a person, but how can we partner with WSU Tri-Cities or CBC in the future for other intern opportunities? So, and again, we have the Washington Workforce Portal, and we've got an opportunity there as well. So I think that's really great. I'm really proud of you. So. Oh,
thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions for Marie? Okay. Well, thank you so much, both of you. Great information, great job with your programs, and we wish you the best of luck. If you're going to continue those again next year, hopefully you will. And if there's anything we can help support you, please let us know. But thanks again.
Well, and thank you, Drew, for all you do, and AWB. I mean, that really did make it easier, you know, for my intern to learn from some folks that are doing some really great work. So thank you for being a resource for us.
A lot of that credit goes to Dave and his team of government affairs. Absolutely.
Well, yes, thanks, Dave.